let's talk about this. Now, if you've already watched the Four Horsemen episode, some of this will be superfluous. You will already know about this story. But I think it's pretty exciting to talk about it because I've been told this is impossible. This is something that can't happen. And that is that the Esports World Cup decided to include Geoguessr. We've covered Geoguessr on the channel before, haven't we? We've talked about Geoguessr. If you don't know, it's basically a game where you click on a part of the map, a world map, a real world map, and it drops you into a place that will have contextual clues. You move the camera around, and then you have to guess where you are. And obviously, over time, this went from being, a coffee break game, essentially, to like a high art, a high craft. Some of these people that do Geoguessr are fucking crazy. And it's like, they've got that goodtism, and you fucking show them a picture and they instantly know where it is based on a number plate or the type of trash can or the power lines that they've got. And it's just wild how fucking deep they've gone on it. Even to the point there have been some other people on, like, you've probably seen YouTube shorts of them, but they use like detective skills they honed in Geoguessr. People will like say, "Oh, here's a photo. Where am I?" and send it in, and they're like, "Okay, well, the font on that menu is primarily used on menus in this country. We zoom in here, this type of tables here, and they'll just find the person like instantly. Like it's crazy. So I always had a lot of respect for it because it's one of those games where it's like it is a particular set of skills. It's so in my opinion, it is an esport. Even if you want to say, oh, it's memorization or whatever like that, I mean, it's still a competitive game where your skills, your talent, your ability is going to dictate your outcome. And so, and I've never been snooty about what can and can't be an esport, as I've said many times. I went to a fucking Angry Birds tournament in Finland, for fuck's sake. I have been out there. I have seen it all. And so, anyway, Geoguessr got folded in to the Esports World Cup. Not officially. It wasn't going to contribute towards that big club championship thing that they have. They basically said, we will do our qualifier, a wildcard qualifier for the World Finals in Riyadh. And the community got wind of this. Now, this is why this is interesting, and this is why I wanted to cover this story specifically for my YouTube channel, because it can go in the pile with all the other Saudi videos. I'm going to update all my playlists, and we're going to make a playlist that's just going to be called Saudi, and we're just going to have all of the videos where I have chronicled stuff about Saudi. By the way, I just was interviewed by Forbes to give my opinions on esports washing just a few days ago. So we will see. I mean, we will see which quotes they use. Put it that way. But anyway, as one of the not lone, there's me. We had Kevin Hitt in the chat earlier. Obviously, James Fudge, the Fudge Man. The last of the esports journalists have kind of been trying to hold it down and push back on the Riyadh thing. But I've accepted that ultimately it is a lost fight. Riyadh has took over esports. It does control all these intersecting amounts. It is very hard to make a living in this space without taking money from the Saudi Arabian state, and those who take a stand against it are blacklisted, blackballed, and not only that, you're not going to be recognized for your ability or your efforts anymore because they bought the esports awards as well. And so for the next 3 years, anyone that's critical of Saudi isn't going to win, and if you don't play for Falcons, you have a greatly reduced chance of winning Player of the Year. I might even go so far as to add that. And this is typical. This is what they do. This is what I said they were going to do when they first came into the space. Watch them do it with things like MMA. Watch them do it with things like golf. Watch them do it with things like boxing, horse racing. They're doing it with Formula One, the Saudi League in the football, giving all these washed up players the bag. They want to be in. They've been given the World Cup. They want Champions League, European Champions League slots for the Saudi League. This is what they do, and it's what they're always going to do, and it's very hard to take a stand against something that is so ubiquitous, especially all the while you are being gaslit and told They drive now, and all the useful idiots come out. Women drive now, and no, they're not locking up dissidents. Well, they've just executed. They had the single largest public execution by the numbers in decades under MBS, and this included young people who had confessions beaten out of them, right? And it's like, that's bad. You shouldn't support people that do things like that. Yeah, but they're making progress, Richard. So maybe 10 years from now, those things won't happen. And it's like, well, cool. But what about now? What about today, dickhead? What do we do today? And evidently what you're supposed to do today is shut up and stop talking about it while they stuff money into your mouth like a fucking tea towel in one of those holders on the wall. And they bought a lot of silence. And so it was refreshing to see this Geoguessr story, because the minute they announced that Geoguessr was going to be on their roadshow, the map makers that make all the official Geoguessr maps, they came out and they said, we are not going to allow our maps to be used for this event by that country, by that state. And they put out one of the best fucking statements I've read from sort of any entity on this particular topic. I'll read it to you. We, the creators of a considerable share of Geoguessr's most popular maps, have decided to make our maps unplayable in protest of Geoguessr AB's decision to host a World Championship wildcard tourney at the Esports World Cup in Riyadh. The EWC is a sports washing tool used by the government of Saudi Arabia to distract from and conceal its horrific human rights record. Groups targeted by the governments include women, LGBTQ people, apostates and atheists, political dissenters, migrant workers in the kafala system, religious minorities, and many others. And by the way, what is refreshing about this particular statement is they're actually well informed. I've heard people tell me, well, they don't use the kafala system anymore. It's like, well, that's not true. There's indentured servitude in Saudi Arabia. They've told me that, the abuse of migrant workers has been investigated by their government. Obviously, it's still going on. Multiple news stories about people having their passports held until they fulfill whatever contractual obligation it's meant to be. We already told you about the political dissenters being killed. They still punish people for apostasy. So these things aren't talked about enough in esports, because I think a lot of these concepts are kind of beyond the grasp of the average esports fan, unfortunately. So this was very refreshing. The subjugation of these groups is extensive and pervasive. Members of these groups are routinely subjected to discrimination, imprisonment, torture, and even public executions. These severe human rights violations are well documented and are indisputable. By participating in the Esports World Cup, Geoguessr is contributing to that sports washing agenda, which is designed to take attention away from Saudi Arabia's human rights violations. The Geoguessr community is diverse and includes many members of groups that would be harshly persecuted were they to live in Saudi Arabia. In solidarity with those currently residing in Saudi Arabia while being subject to oppression, as well as members of the community who would feel and be unsafe attending the tournament in Riyadh, we have decided to black out our maps by replacing all their previous locations with random garbage locations, therefore rendering them unplayable. And this is another refreshing aspect to this statement, which is often people go, hey, look, we went to Saudi Arabia as business partners and we were allowed to do X, Y, and Z. We were allowed to wear the rainbow flag. We were allowed to do all of these things. But the problem is the Saudi Arabian citizens aren't allowed to do these things and indeed would be imprisoned, persecuted, potentially executed if they did those things. And so, when people do that, like, we stand with this group, we all of that activism, the public virtue signaling. What I always find fascinating about that is how it doesn't extend very far. I made this point. I did a YouTube video again about, it was essentially, the woke capitalism or whatever you wanted to call it, how fake it is, how American companies essentially use progressive causes as a marketing tool, and as soon as it isn't profitable to do, they get rid of them. For instance, Budweiser, very good modern example. All the rightoids fucking lost their mind because they sent Dylan Mulvaney a fucking personalized can of Bud Light. Didn't even do an official fucking commercial. And the right wing, which are against cancel culture, cancel Budweiser. What did Budweiser do? Did they stick to their guns and say, all right, fuck you, guess what? Trans flag now on the fucking side of the can. Fuck you, this is our audience now. We don't want you. No, they didn't do that. What they did was they sort of mealy-mouthed apologized, said they shouldn't have done anything political when all they did was send an influencer a personalized can of beer, and then the next commercials they were putting out, we're back, and here's Shane Gillis, and yeah, we want you back, and you know, they don't care. They don't care. They care about money. You know, it was the same with all the Colin Kaepernick at Nike. People were going, well, this is a terrible decision for Nike. No, very good decision, actually. They made a bunch of money off that. But I can't help but notice he's somewhat conspicuous by his absence these days. Now that the myth of him being persecuted out of the league has kind of just been allowed to dissipate. They don't care. They just want your money. And so, obviously, when people say, you know, I said this during the Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, they said, but not the Black Lives that built stadiums in these countries, not the black lives of children that die in mines to get minerals for all these Western corporations, not those lives, the American lives we can talk about performatively for social kudos, those ones, that's what we mean. And so it's hard to walk a straight line in the modern era with this stuff, and you have to pick and choose, your causes, and sometimes you will get caught in a hypocritical web. But when you say you stand with the LGBT community, and then you take money from a country that criminalizes LGBT people, persecutes them, and executes them, I'm sorry, you cannot then pay lip service to how much you care about those people. It doesn't wash. It doesn't work. Anyway, this blackout includes dozens of creators and their maps, including a supermajority of the most popular, competitively relevant world maps. It will continue until we see action from Geoguessr. Specifically, we demand that Geoguessr cancels its wildcard event in Saudi Arabia and commits to not hosting any events there as long as it continues its oppressive regime. You don't play games with human rights, which is a rather fucking cool tagline that I'll probably be borrowing and using myself. So, basically, that rendered the game unplayable. And as a result of that, Geoguessr had no choice. They ultimately had to come out and withdraw from the esports World Cup. Thank you for your patience over the last few hours. I have an important message from our CEO and co-founder. I've seen your reactions over the past few days regarding our decision to participate in the Esports World Cup in Riyadh. When we made that decision, it was with positive intentions to engage with our community in the Middle East and to spread Geoguessr's core mission of letting everyone explore the world. Since Erland, Anton, and I founded Geoguessr in 2013, we've always strived to be a community-first game. Everyone here at the Stockholm office is a passionate Geoguessr fan, doing our best to build something meaningful with you and for you. That said, you, our community, have made it clear this decision does not align with what Geoguessr stands for. So when you tell us we've got it wrong, we take it seriously. That's why we've made the decision to withdraw from participating in the Esports World Cup in Riyadh. We will come back with information on how the wildcards will be distributed shortly. Now, the problem there's a number of problems. This is obviously a big win. It's a W for now. And why am I saying it like that? Well, not just because I'm a world-weary cynic, but obviously Geoguessr didn't commit to not being at the Esports World Cup in future. Obviously, what Geoguessr are going to do is they are going to try in the future to find a way to mitigate this type of thing happening again. They will be at the Esports World Cup in future. I think if they felt they weren't going to be, they would have said, we're not going to be. I also think probably what will happen is we will likely see them either try and purchase the maps from the map makers, or they'll create their own maps or something like that to prevent this happening. And they'll likely do that relatively quickly, because if you do want to be involved next year for the Esports World Cup, now is the time to strike. And so that obviously is likely to happen. I'm making assumptions there, but we will see. Ultimately, what's more important is kind of how fascinating this is as a contrast to what everyone else did. And that is that if you look at CS, well, we were told it was impossible. We were told it was impossible. We can't run a CS team without the money we get from Riyadh. We absolutely have to take this money or we cannot exist. That's what all of the esports orgs told us. They said the same for Dota. In fact, the number of gaming communities that have accepted blindly Saudi Arabian money makes it very hard to not believe there's some sort of psyop going on. Because whenever you read a thread about it, like, you know, Falcons gets brought up, or ESL gets brought up, or the Esports World Cup gets brought up, you go on the Counter-Strike subreddit, right? Which is, by the way, I'm 95% certain ESL threads get manipulated on that subreddit now. I don't know who's doing it or why they're doing it, but complaints about ESL production and ESL events and ESL ticketing snafus, they all get downvoted into oblivion every single time without fail. Any competitor gets insulted, blast PGL, front page, no problem. And that's very weird. And by the way, if you know anything about the Saudi Arabian government, they manipulate social media all of the time. It's not like some hyperbolic, paranoid statement. It's why they embedded themselves in multiple companies and invested in multiple companies. Reddit is obviously, admittedly, more on the Chinese government side of things. But Reddit's also the easiest platform to manipulate. You could just have 10 burners and you can pretty much get anything you want to any front page of any subreddit. Anyway, whenever anything is brought up about Saudi Arabia and on the Counter-Strike subreddit, what they all say is, well, how's it any worse than gambling money? Which is one of the dumbest statements probably anybody can say about anything. Obviously, a government that oppresses and kills its own people, political dissidents, kills and criminalizes gay people, that is obviously worse than a company that allows you to optionally participate in a practice that you may or may not find addictive and may damage your finances. These are not the same thing. And so, obviously, the fact that so many esports fans are seemingly so pathetic that they cannot understand the difference, and they often go, oh, well, if we're funded by gambling money, who cares? It's all blood money. It's like, no, it really isn't. But it gets brought up every single time, and in the CS community especially, in the Dota community too. But obviously the Dota community, they say, listen, if Saudi Arabia want to put their money into it and it keeps Dota alive, we're fine. That's all we care about. We just want to have the scene survive. So, okay, fine, I guess. The fighting games community, they're just like, well, whatever. You know, nobody really took a stand at any point to all of this, and everybody just presented the idea, not in the Joe Biden style, but the idea you had to accept this money, that you had to take it. And so it's clearly not true. Why would the Geoguessr community, you know, be able to push back and make it so Geoguessr go, well, fuck it. We just have to do it. We've rendered the game unplayable. Also, is there no other equivalent of that in the games? Is there no way, nobody cares enough to not play, to not participate? It's really sad. But the Geoguessr thing did actually give me a little bit of hope, in the sense that perhaps it will be the smaller games that lead the way. Maybe the big esports titles are so ethically compromised that they just have to exist in this manner, and they have to take all manner of terrible money. But then, and this is the part that's new, and actually, I made a joke on the episode of The Four Horsemen, where I basically said, what we should do is, we should run our own Geoguessr event and call it like the Human Rights Violators Cup, and every country in it is a country that violates people's fundamental human rights, and I'll host it and promote it and all of this and do it for free. Anyway, they actually are running something similar at the same time as the Esports World Cup. It was announced, and I didn't clock this before I went on the episode of the show, and so I wanted to promote it while I was talking about it again for my stream. But here it is. It's the Rainbow Classic Tournament announcement. You don't play games with human rights. And basically they're gonna run the event over the top with what would have been the Geoguessr Esports World Cup event, obviously now cancelled. They've already brought the casters in. They're going to do it for charity. And you can see here they explain. The Rainbow Classic will be taking prize pool from the crowdfunded and will be split 50-50 with the players and various charities, which we will then likely choose. And if you'd like to contribute to the prize pool, you can do so here. And they're just going to basically mix it up and just have some fun with it. And so anyway, again, I don't know anyone over in Geoguessr. Like the closest is Launders. But this is something I definitely would like to do something for them with and kind of promote and what have you. And I think these are the types of initiatives that we need to do more of, that ultimately you can do things that run over the top of the Esports World Cup. You could host the CS event, you could host the Dota event, you could do something. I mean, I wanted to get permission and looked into it, but there was all these copyright issues with it. But there was like a bunch of documentaries that were all about sports washing and the indentured servitude and the kafala system, and I just wanted to have like a 24-hour stream running showing all of these like educational documentaries about why the Saudi Arabian state is bad, running at the same time as the Esports World Cup. But we couldn't get it up and running off the ground, and we settled with Operation Pride Before a Fall instead, which has made me a pariah and an outcast in esports, because I sent hundreds of emails to sponsors of every esports organization that was getting funded by the Esports World Cup stipend program. But anyway, this is cool. I'm going to see if I can somehow get involved and do something for this, even if it's just to maybe drive some donations its way. But this is exactly how you fight this stuff. This is what you do. And it's really embarrassing, I think, for esports as a whole, that Geoguessr is leading the way on moral clarity on this issue. I mean, think about how little money is in that scene. Think about how like money raining down would probably be like a fucking manna from heaven for that fucking scene. And yet the people that make the maps, not interested. The people that watch the game, not interested. The commentators, not interested. And so, yeah, just really crazy. We got a first-time chat here. Emily Apocalypse says, as someone who was semi-involved with the map blackout, I can send you over the contacts of the organisers. I would love that. You can DM them to Jice in the chat, my head mod and lead coder. He will pass them on. You can my DMs are open on Twitter if you use that. But yeah, I'd love to do something, and even if it's just to offer some moral support and show them that, look, there are a lot of dickheads in esports and a lot of assholes and a lot of greedy people, but you know, some of us absolutely support the stance and stand with you guys as well. So please, the main thing is, Geoguessr, as I said, have shown a very clear moral line that a lot of people, I don't think, are willing to walk in the wider world of esports. And that is something that makes me unbelievably sad, that it is smaller titles that really need the money and really need the attention. Like CS has already made it, Dota's already made it, League of Legends has already made it. Riot Games is owned by Tencent, one of the biggest fucking corporations in the world. What do you need this? Why does it have to be this money? Why does it have to be this money? But they take it. They take it and they say nothing about it. And as I measured it myself. There's been like an 80% decline, by the way, if you go back to like 2018, 2019, All these organizations that are now compromised by the Saudi Arabian state and everything they were saying about, oh, we love pride, and they were making like rainbow, themed jerseys or whatever it might be. That's not happening now. These orgs aren't doing it. And they're either not doing it because they're being told by the people that hold the purse strings, yeah, lay off on that pride shit. Or they're not doing it because they don't want to be told to their face, you are fucking hypocrites. And that's just what's really grotesque about it. That when a way to raise money was to pay fucking lip service to DEI and whatever else fucking acronym and abbreviation you want to use, that was all the way you made money in 2018, 2019. That was the way you hoovered money out of the American marketing budgets. Now that it's the Saudi Arabian state or the Chinese government or another oil baron run country, now obviously we have to pretend gay and trans people don't exist and don't play our game. But if they do, they're totally welcome, but we're just not going to talk about them. It's fucking lame. It's actual dog shit. It's like, this has been the most, all of that hysteria in 2014 about how gaming was bad and esports was bad and it was run by chuds and we all hated everyone that was different. That was never true. Esports was always one of the most welcoming kind of practices, hobbies I'd ever participated in. And this, what's happening now with Saudi, this is the most regressive stuff that's happened. And I say that as someone who's been here for 20 years. This is the most regressive stuff. This is what's actually, making people feel like they don't belong. This is what is actually making people not talk about these topics anymore. This is what is emboldening people to, like you saw we had the ESL Impact Finals. What a fucking mess. What a fucking mess, guys. And it's not a coincidence. It is not a coincidence that these are the people that own esports now, and those are the attitudes that are being permeated in the scene. It's one and the same. It's all linked.